Okay, welcome to part 3 of 2.2. So last time we left off here. You guys tried these 3 problems. Um, and we looked at how to find sine, cosine, tangent, and all of the reciprocal trig functions, reciprocal of sine, cosine, and tangent, like cosecant. Okay. So in this next part, we are going to look at inverse trig functions. Inverse trig functions. All right, so take notes. Okay, so far, when you've been solving parts of a triangle, you've only been asked to find missing sides, right? You haven't been asked to find a missing angle unless you were given 2 of the angles, right? And you can use the fact that the angles add up to 180 to find that third missing one, right? But you haven't been asked to find a missing angle unless you have 2 of them known. Okay, so here what we're doing is we're going to look at that case. We're going to look at, okay, well, what if I don't know 2 of the angles? How do I find a missing angle? And that's where the inverse trig function comes into play. Okay, so if we know the angle, right? So if we know an angle, like say 30 degrees, right? So if we know an angle, then we can find all the trig functions, right? So if we know an angle like 30 degrees, right? Or whatever angle, 27 degrees, then we can find all 6 trig functions. We can find sine of 27 degrees, cosine 27 degrees, tangent 27 degrees, cosecant of 27, secant of 27, and cotangent of 27, right? So if we know the angle, we can find the trig function. I'm going to say the 6 trig functions. Of that angle. Okay. Now, if it's the other way around, if we know the trig function, then we can find the angle. Okay. So what does that mean? So like if you're given cosine theta, that's one of the trig functions. If you're given that cosine theta is 0.75, then we can actually find that angle, theta. So we can find theta. Okay. So the way we find the missing angle is by using what's called the inverse trig function. And you have those buttons on your calculator as well. Okay, so on your calculator, you should have, this is the notation, so you should see these on your calculator. Sine inverse, cosine inverse, and tangent inverse. So we are going to use these to find angles when given the trig function. Okay. So if you're given the sine of an angle, if you're given sine of theta equals blah blah blah, then you're going to use sine inverse to find that angle. If you're given cosine theta equals blah blah blah, then you're going to use cosine inverse. And then if you're given tangent theta equals blah blah blah, then you're going to use tangent inverse to find that theta. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at an example. All right, so let's find, and in this section here, because like I said, inverse functions are a little more complicated than what we're going to see here in this section, and we'll cover them later on in the book. So here we're going to stick to just the acute angles. Okay, so find the acute angle theta given that tangent theta equals 3.152. Okay. And let's go ahead and round answer to nearest tenth. Nearest tenth of a degree. Nearest tenth, that's just one decimal place. Okay. Okay, so we know tangent theta, right? We know tangent theta, so that means we're going to use tangent inverse. Okay, so look on your calculator and look for the tangent inverse button. It should look like this. Okay, so look for that button, and this is the way you would punch it in. So depending on your calculator, again, the order, you might have to do this order. So you can try this one. Try doing this. Tangent inverse, hit that button first. Tangent inverse of 3.152. Okay, so I do the tangent inverse of this, and that should give me theta. Okay, so that should give me theta. If that one doesn't work, okay, so try that one, or try switching the order. Again, depending on which calculator you're using, try doing the 3.152 first, and then the tangent inverse. Okay. Whichever one you use, you should get 72.4 degrees. Okay, we're rounding to nearest tenth. Okay, so you should get 72.4 degrees. So that's how you find a missing angle. Okay, so that's how you find an angle. So from just this, we don't even have a full triangle. We don't know what A, B, C, side A, side B, side C. We don't know anything about the triangle. We only know this. We only know the trig function. But if you know the trig function, then you know that angle. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and try another one. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. All right, find the acute angle A. Find the acute angle A for which sine of A equals 0.3733. Okay, and let's go ahead and round answer. Let's go ahead and round to the nearest tenth. So just like the last one. Okay, nearest tenth. That's just one decimal place. Okay, so same thing here. You might have to hit this button first, and then the 0.3733, or you might have to switch that order, 0.3733, and then the sine inverse. But whichever one you get, you should get 21.9 degrees. We found the angle. Okay. Again, if you're not getting these, check your mode. Make sure you are in degree mode. Okay. And let's see here. All right. Let's do this one. To the nearest hundredth. To the nearest hundredth. That's 2 decimal places of a degree. Find the acute angle Find the acute angle B for which secant. Oh, we don't have a secant button. Secant B equals 1.0768. Okay, so we don't have a secant button, but we do know what which one it's a reciprocal of. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Okay, so then if secant B equals that 1.0768, if secant B equals that, then cosine B must equal 1 over that, right? So there, now you have that. Now you can use cosine inverse. Okay, so at this point, hopefully you should have figured out which order you need to enter the cosine inverse button. Maybe you do it first. Okay, do cosine inverse of 1. Remember, fraction is like division. So do 1 divided by, here, maybe 1 divided by 1.0768. Keep that all in parentheses because remember, you're taking the cosine inverse of all of that. Okay, so if you're not getting this 21.77 degrees, okay, then make sure you're using parentheses. So make sure you're doing cosine inverse, right? So 1 divided by that. So you're going to need to use your parentheses. 1 divided by 1.0768, and then your close parentheses. Okay, so these are parentheses. This is a left hand parenthesis. This is a right hand parenthesis. So make sure you're telling the calculator that you want to take the cosine inverse of all of this in here. Okay, and then check to see if now you get 21.77 degrees. Same thing if you have to go the other direction, you have to do this first, put it all in parentheses, and then hit your cosine inverse button. Okay, so so whether you have to do cosine inverse first or cosine inverse second, either way, keep it all in parentheses. Okay. All right. All right, let's take a look at this one. Let's go ahead and try this one on your own, and then check back. Find the acute angle. Find the acute angle C for which cotangent, again, we don't have a cotangent button, equals 0.0975. Okay, round to the nearest degree. So no decimal. Okay, so go ahead and try this one. Hit the pause button and come right back. Okay, so since cotangent equals that, then tangent equals to 1 over 0.0975. Okay, and so now I can use my tangent inverse button. So tangent inverse, and make sure you keep everything in parentheses, and then do your, I'm just going to write it all in once. 1 divided by 0.0975, close your parentheses, and then you should get 84 degrees. No decimal because it says round to the nearest degree, so 84. Okay. All right. And if you have the other calculator where you have to enter this first, again, enter it just like this with your parentheses, and then hit your tangent inverse button. Okay. All right. So that is it. If you have any questions on 2.2, or any of this, make sure you email me or text message me. Make sure you are keeping up with the homework.